West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Are you ready for a big Tuesday morning show? Sure hope so. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Tuesday morning, June 24. So good to see you today. Thanks for being part of the program here on Free Speech TV, nationwide, all across this great land of ours, and worldwide on Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKR TV. And on this big Tuesday morning, most of the focus still on Iraq, where John Kerry, Secretary of State, made a surprise emergency visit yesterday to meet with Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki and put the pressure on him to open up his government to some Sunni leadership so they can form a united government as a counter to the Sunni insurgents. Not sure still whether al-Maliki is the man to do that. The United States has serious doubts. Meanwhile, the insurgents continue to grab territory. They now control every single border crossing between Iraq and Syria, and the only border crossing between Iraq and Jordan. The Justice Department releasing yesterday the memo that they say authorizes the legal use of drones to kill Americans on foreign soil. A lot of that memo was redacted, but it's still a pretty scary step in executive power. I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about that. President Obama joining the First Lady yesterday at a White House summit on working families. We're going to talk about e-cigarettes today. Yes, and the moves now to clamp down on e-cigarettes and regulate them the same way we do regular cigarettes. And big primary battles in Mississippi in the Republican primary between Thad Cochran, incumbent Republican senator, and Tea Party challenger Chris McDaniel, and Charlie Rangel fighting for his life in the 13th Congressional District of New York State. That's the fare for Tuesday. Great show coming up. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am
I am
tired,
tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
The Supreme Court, big victory for the environment, big victory for the EPA. Hey, the Roberts Court finally got something right. Good morning, everybody. Tuesday, yes, Tuesday, June 24. Great to see you this morning. We're ready to go. Hope you are too. For the big roundup of the news of the day here, we call it the Bill Press Show. We are reaching out to you on your local progressive talk radio station. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget, support your sponsors on the local progressive talk radio station because they keep us in business and keep your station alive, and that's so important to get the truth out there every morning from a progressive point of view. We're coming to you live also on the TuneIn app. If you haven't done so, download it today. Download it right now. TuneIn app. It's free, and the Progressive Voices channel is where you will find us on the TuneIn app. And look at you out there on Free Speech TV. We're looking right at you. And on our video stream, Talker TV, TAWKR TV. It's youtube.com/Talker TV. So there you go. That's how you find us and how you reach us. If you've got a comment, we want to hear from you about what all the news means to you today. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. You come right through here to the studio. We'll put you on the air, as many of you as we can. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. It's not just me. We got the whole team here. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Good morning. Good morning.
Hey.
Hey, good morning.
And Alicia Cruz here, back with us this week. She back from, she was hopscotching around Europe last week, in her private jet. I mean, she was having a good time there on vacation, but she's back taking our calls today. Alicia Cruz there on the phones, and Cyprian Volding, silent but deadly.
Silent but deadly.
Yeah, behind the closed door there. Right. Whoops, watch out. On the video stream and on our videographer on Free Speech and youtube.com/Talker TV. So President Obama out of the bubble again yesterday. Oh, man, he's making it's almost once a week now, right?
Yeah.
He walked down to the Department of Interior a couple of weeks ago. Last week, he walked down to Starbucks on Pennsylvania Avenue, just below the White House. Yesterday, he was going out to the Omni Shoreham Hotel for the Summit on Working Families. He got there a little early on purpose. Then he walked down the street to Chipotle.
Yeah.
Got a Chipotle bowl.
Chipotle's, little burrito bowl.
Little burrito bowl, I'm sorry, rather. That's my favorite thing at Chipotle.
There you go.
I think it is the best thing at Chipotle. It's yummy.
It is.
To confirm his official order, by the way.
Oh, yes.
He got a chicken burrito bowl with white rice.
No, you need to get the brown rice.
I hear you. President got white rice with the tomato salsa verde, the green salsa, which is good.
Both, yeah.
You could go double.
Good. Yeah.
Lettuce, cheese, and guacamole.
He loaded it up.
Yummy avocado.
Yeah. I didn't hear the black beans.
No beans.
No beans.
No beans.
I always get the black beans.
I got
the brown rice.
I go no beans, and then I go corn and
I like the corn.
verde.
I like the corn.
Yeah.
I like the corn. I loaded up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like he did too.
He loaded it up.
Michelle wasn't looking when he put the guac on.
Yeah. Any cheese with that, sir? He looks over his shoulder to make sure no one's looking. Michelle's not around. Yeah, I'll have cheese and guac.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So good for him. And he talked at the Working Family Summit about raising the minimum wage. And, it was a couple of days ago, as Conan O'Brien pointed out last night, that the president talked about he would like to see his daughters work minimum wage jobs. Here's Conan.
Obama made a pretty interesting comment. President Obama said he wants his daughters to work minimum wage jobs because it builds character. Isn't that nice? Yeah, I thought that was good. Yeah. Yeah, the president then announced he'll be raising the minimum wage to $50 an hour.
Well, that's when it hits home.
Yeah.
Right. It's like Cheney. He was against same-sex marriage until he had a gay daughter, right? Lesbian daughter. See? So the president's not willing to raise the minimum wage above $10.10 an hour until his daughter's working one. It's $50. That's how the world works. All right, lots coming up today with a lot of your good friends. Arthur and Igor. Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post, Igor Volsky from Think Progress, and a little bit later, Congresswoman Jackie Speier from California will be here, as well as Margaret Talev, who covers the White House for Bloomberg News. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Poor Marion Barry had a little problem with a reporter. He's out promoting his autobiography, and a reporter asked him about a yoga tax here in Washington, D.C. and its proposed tax on yoga classes and gym memberships that people are proposing. And Mayor Barry, Mayor for Life. Council Member Barry, but Mayor for Life.
We know him as Mayor for Life.
Misheard and thought that they had asked about a yogurt tax.
Which
which no one has proposed. No one has brought up.
Don't tax my Chipotle, man.
But don't tell Marion Barry that there is no such thing as a yogurt tax. He went right into attack mode and said, quote, "Yogurt is really more healthy than some other things, as is cottage cheese. I don't know who proposed that. I think Jack Evans proposed that. I'm not sure." Talking to him about another council member. And then went on a diatribe about hormones in dairy. Quote, "Again, you notice what hormones do and are doing to our young people. You find these young ladies with fully developed breasts, fully developed bodies."
Goodness.
Someone then said, "Mr. Mayor, we're talking about a yoga tax, not a yogurt tax."
Oh, no.
Just to be clear, there is no yogurt tax being proposed.
You know what happened there?
I think I know.
Yep, the bitch set him up.
That's right.
That's what happened.
That's right. Read two of these and call me in the morning. Yesterday, the American Academy of Pediatrics put out a new standard on prescribing books to children. They've never done this before. Doctors, when parents take their kids to pediatricians,
you should read this book.
They check them out and say, here's here's some medicine you could take, blah, blah, blah. But also, by the way, you should read this book and this book and this book. They're prescribing books as treatment.
I like that a lot.
They've never done that before.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. They're friends of mine I'd like to prescribe books for. You don't understand this. You ought to read this book. You read this book, then come back and we'll talk. Seriously. We ought to I like that.
I like that. Yeah. Take it beyond just children. And who's watching the World Cup?
Everybody.
Here in America, 18.2 million people watched the United States game against Portugal. That makes it the most watched game in United States TV history. The most watched soccer game. Previous record was 1999 when 17.97 million viewers watched the Women's World Cup final between the USA and China. Thursday at noon is the next game. I don't know if the rating is going to be as high because it's the middle of the day. It's a weird time, but I know a lot of people are going to be watching.
You know what, man? That's going to be a big lunch break.
Yeah.
Thursday, you bet.
I meant to tell you, I'm going to be a little busy on Thursday around lunchtime.
Well, I'm pretty sure, too, I'm sure it's going to be a national holiday, right, when these things happen. Especially here in the United States because soccer is really catching on.
It is catching on, yeah. In fact, see my column in The Hill. We ought to put it out there.
We will.
On The Hill newspaper this morning, thehill.com. and my column, which is Soccer Fever. Soccer Fever hits U.S.
There
That's
you
the
go.
headline they put on it. Right. Yeah. Soccer fever. How about Iraq fever, man? That's also the big news of the day and where we start this morning. Just to bring you up to date on the latest, not such good news. The Sunni extremists, the ISIL or the ISIS, depending on which you prefer. We're talking about the same group, ISIS or ISL. The White House prefers to call them the ISL. They have expanded and taken even more territory in eastern Iraq. Get this. Their goal, right, is to create an Islamic state, Islamic caliphate, they call it, in that eastern part of Iraq and part of Syria. Okay, they now control, as of yesterday, every single border post between Iraq and Syria and the one and only border post between Iraq and Jordan. Now, it seems to me if you control all the border posts coming into a country, you got a country, you got a state. I mean, you got some authority, and that's what they've done. So this is really a power to be reckoned with, an evil power to be reckoned with. At the same time, the other news, of course, is, as we mentioned yesterday, just before our show started, Secretary of State John Kerry arrived in Baghdad. He met with the Prime Minister yesterday, and he again pushed him, Maliki, because he's the guy that's got to do it, for opening things up and creating a unified government. And John Kerry saying that's the only solution to Iraq is a unified government. Meanwhile, here at home, of course, we still have this continuing chorus of critics of President Obama's policies in Iraq, particularly a criticism of his decision to pull troops out of Iraq 2.5 years ago. Critics led by Dick Cheney, who, of course, was taking this, wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal last week we talked about, and then repeated these charges Sunday on the talk shows. Here he is with basically making the same point with George Stephanopoulos.
He is dramatically limiting the capability of future presidents to deal with crises by virtue of the policies he's taken. Now, I don't intend any disrespect for the president, but I fundamentally disagree with him. I think he's dead wrong in terms of the course he's taken this nation, and I think we're in for big trouble in the years ahead because of his refusal to recognize reality and because of his continual emphasis upon getting the U.S. basically to withdraw from that part of the world.
Yeah, in other words, what Cheney is saying, what McCain is saying, what Lindsey Graham is saying is we got to go back to Iraq. We have to stay in Iraq. We should have stayed there. We should never have left Iraq, and we should never leave Afghanistan. Dick Cheney continuing that same theme on Face the Nation.
The scope of the problem in part is based upon an unwillingness by the president to recognize we have a problem. They're still living back in the day when they claimed we got bin Laden, terrorism problem solved. That wasn't true then. It's even less true today.
Yeah. He keeps coming up with this old canard that President Obama felt that when he got Osama bin Laden, that he basically said, mission accomplished. No, see, Cheney's getting confused. It wasn't Obama on the deck of that aircraft carrier with a banner, mission accomplished, in back of him. No. Hey, Dick, that was George. That was W. That was your baby. That was not Barack Obama. He never did that. So, but it's not just Dick Cheney. Now listen to these names, okay? The people who've been out there, the chief critics of what the president is doing, of the president's policies in the Middle East, particularly in Iraq, and the chief people who are out there saying Obama should never have withdrawn our troops from Iraq. Here are the people, okay? Dick Cheney, Paul Wolfowitz, John Bolton, Paul Bremer, and Bill Kristol. There may be some others, but those five.
Those are the big ones.
What do they all have in common? They are all the architects of the war in Iraq. These are the guys who started the war in Iraq, who pushed George Bush. By the way, he would be on the list if he were talking, but George Bush, to his credit, is keeping his mouth shut. These are the guys who pushed George Bush into invading Iraq. These are the guys who still think we ought to be there. And these are the guys who lied to the American people about why we had to invade Iraq. God bless Megyn Kelly, who went after Dick Cheney, and even though she works for Fox News, pointed this out. He's the guy that was wrong in the first place.
In your op-ed, you write as follows: rarely has a U.S. president been so wrong about so much at the expense of so many. But time and time again, history has proven that you got it wrong as well in Iraq, sir. You said there was no doubt Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. You said we would be greeted as liberators. You said the Iraq insurgency was in the last throes back in 2005.
Yeah.
And you said that after our intervention, extremists would have to, quote, rethink their strategy of jihad. Now, with almost $1 trillion spent there, with 4,500 American lives lost there, what do you say to those who say you were so wrong about so much at the expense of so many?
You were the one who was so wrong, yeah. But here's the real question. I'd love to hear your take on this at 866-55-PRESS. Look, disgusting to hear Cheney come out here and when he's the one who started the war and attacking President Obama for withdrawing our troops. But do you think he's doing the Republican Party any good? There's some Republicans right now who've publicly said Cheney ought to just shut up. Because the last thing the Republican Party needs right now is to come out and be the party of going back to war in Iraq. That's not what the American people want. I mean, Cheney is really saying we have to put boots back on the ground. We never should have left. We got to go back. And so is John McCain, and so is Lindsey Graham. So that's the question. Is Cheney doing the Republican Party any favors by beating the war drums again in Iraq? Okay, conservatives and Republicans, we'll put you on the air first, all right? Your call's first. And if you're not a Republican or a conservative, and chances are if you're watching the show or listening to the show, you are not, put your Republican hat on, okay? And ask yourself, if you're a Republican, you really think Cheney is doing you a favor by flapping his gums about going back, putting troops back in Iraq? 866-55-PRESS. Here we go. Let's talk about it Tuesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis,
I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Again, at 26 minutes after the hour, Arthur Delaney joins us from Huffington Post in the next half hour here on the program. Meanwhile, Dick Cheney leading a chorus of critics, a chorus of old Iraq war hawks who are saying we were right in the first place. We should have stayed there, and we ought to go back. And, of course, all of those war hawks are the same ones who were the architects of the war in the first place. Dick Cheney and Paul Wolfowitz. I'm surprised Donald Rumsfeld hasn't been out there, too.
Oh, man, that's a throwback.
And Bill Kristol and John Bolton and Paul Bremer, right? Wolfowitz, remember, he was a guy out at Camp David who right after, and this has all been reported, in a meeting the president took his national security team out to Camp David right after September 11, where we had been attacked, of course, by Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda, who were hiding out then in Afghanistan, and the president put it out to his team and said, so what should we do here? And Paul Wolfowitz, then Deputy Secretary of Defense, said, we should invade Iraq. And the president said, what? What? Iraq? I mean, these guys are in Afghanistan. What are you saying we should invade Iraq? And Donald Rumsfeld said, well, there are more targets in Iraq.
There you go.
Yeah. There's too much desert in Afghanistan. Not enough targets for us to bomb. And at least George W. Bush, give him credit for that, at the time, had the wisdom to say, no, let's focus for now on Afghanistan. But that shows how eager they were to invade Iraq from the very, very beginning. If you ask me, they're not doing the Republican Party any favors, and some Republican strategists are out there today making that very point, basically telling Dick Cheney to go away and shut up. Arthur Delaney next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything.
Why are you asking me that?
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Darker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
30. Sorry. We need a microphone. I should know that after a few years in talk radio here, but I started out without getting my microphone in place here. It is the Bill Press Show, 33 minutes after the hour. Good morning, good morning. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, and we are brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, good men and women of the Teamsters Union. Under President Jim Hoffa, we all live better because of their good work, and you can find out about all the good stuff that they're up to at www.teamster.org. Just heard from them the other day. They're doing a big organizing drive for bus drivers. Most bus drivers, school bus drivers are women, and many of them are not getting paid a decent wage and forced to work some incredible hours, which is not good for school kids. So I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that from our friends at the Teamsters lately. And when it comes to working families and middle-class Americans, no better champion than Arthur Delaney from the Huffington Post, who joins us again in studio this morning. Arthur, good morning.
Great morning.
How are you?
Wonderful.
All right, here's. I want to get this off my chest right away. Off my chest. Something really bugs me. Okay. The White House yesterday has a big summit on working families.
Yes.
So at the briefing yesterday, we asked new Press Secretary Josh Earnest, okay, all right, what's going to come out of this? Is this there's going to be some legislation here? What are you going to do? There's legislation on the Hill already for paid family medical leave.
Right.
Does the president support that? No, we don't support that bill necessarily yet. Right?
Now, what's with that?
We like the concept. So we said, well, what's going to happen? And they said, well, we just want to start a national conversation about working families.
Well, we need that, but
yeah, that's my question. You know, I turned to the person alongside me and said, this reminds me of the national conversation about guns, right? The president said, I want to start a national conversation about guns. All right, yeah, but then what did you do about it? Nothing. So what are they going to really do about helping working families? Do we know?
The gun conversation was accompanied by a push for legislation that ultimately failed.
Correct.
Is the idea here
no
that
follow-up, but it didn't fail.
We don't want to fail again because they probably would. They want in theory want paid sick leave, paid maternity leave, which astonishingly we are the only country in the developed world that does not provide paid maternity leave, paid sick leave, which is just breathtaking. I'm continuously amazed by it.
Right. And I'm amazed that there is legislation, even if the votes aren't there, there is legislation on the Hill, I forget who the author is, maybe you know, but of that legislation, and the White House hasn't supported it. So it seems to me that they're not putting their full weight behind this.
Oh, I don't fully understand why they would not do that. Is it for fear of alienating Republicans too quickly? Already, they're pretty alienated.
Yeah, right.
So I don't quite understand. Ernest's response there.
Yeah. No, it just bugs me. We don't need another national conversation. We need action on every front. We don't need another conversation about global warming. We just need to do the job. Same thing about guns. Do the job. We know
I don't know.
Working families. We know what we have to do.
Simple. Everyone panders to working families and working moms especially. And we have this phenomenon of single mothers that people are always wringing their hands about. So I think it is worth raising awareness that there could be policies to help this very important and wide demographic.
Right.
And that every other developed country in the world has policies that help these people, and we're the only ones who don't.
No.
How can the business community plausibly argue that it's unaffordable? Is there no business in these other countries?
No.
I think awareness of this is powerful.
I do too. I'm with you on the policy. What I'm bemoaning is the lack of action, and I don't see it coming from this White House on that issue, and I'm disappointed in that. You have been turning stuff out right and left here. Let me get to some of them. You got a real bug about the Redskins name. Yes, you wrote about that again yesterday. The most popular alternative name for the Washington football team is?
The Warriors.
The Warriors?
Huffington Post.
I thought you had the Department of Football.
Well, we asked.
Oh, all right.
We have a polling operation led by our top pollster, Mark Blumenthal, and myself and Emily Swanson, another reporter at Huffington Post. We put together a poll to ask people, if you had to switch the Redskins' names, which of this list of 7 names do you like? And Warriors got majority support in the question where we didn't also give people the choice of Redskins. No one thinks we should change the name to Redskins. Only 20% of people want to change the name. People don't think it's offensive to Native Americans.
Really?
But if you force them
Wait a minute. The readers of the Huffington Post are... Right?
This is not the readers of the Huffington Post. This is a legitimate polling operation.
Oh, okay.
It's broader than just our readership. It's not radio buttons on our website.
Yeah.
For people who are already there.
Right. Oh, okay.
And other polls by other outfits have actually found similar results. So there is not popular support
for changing the name.
However, I don't think that matters. It's still the decent thing to do, as Charles Krauthammer brilliantly wrote last October. I don't like being told what to do by liberals. I don't like being told what to do by President Obama and these PC types. But good grief, These people are offended. Maybe it's a close call. It's still the decent thing to do. The most powerful thing written, I think, on the Redskins issue. But anyway, no one likes Washington Department of Football.
Okay.
I sort of cheekily wrote in here, some commentators have advocated for Washington Department of Football.
Oh, yeah.
That's just, it links to a story in which it's me.
I'm all for it. I think that's tremendous.
Then the nickname for the Washington Department of Football is DOFs. And as I explained in this story, this is a nod to the team's tradition of being forced by the government to do the right thing, because in 1961, they were the last segregated all-white NFL team. And they were going to stay that way, except the Secretary of the Interior in the JFK administration said, you want to play in this stadium on federal land? You need to hire some black players. So they did. And that is the story of how the Redskins integrated.
I did not know that.
The government made them, forced them.
Right. Well, then the government should force them to change their name. What do you think of Warriors, Peter?
I think it's all right. I think it's okay. I think you could keep a lot. You could keep the fight song, which is something everybody brings up every time.
The Warriors.
Yeah,
it's a stupid fight song. It would be better if they said, "Hail to the Washington Department of Football! Hail to the Washington Department of Football!" The song has a racist legacy. It used to be "Hail to fight for all Dixie."
Oh, jeez. I actually didn't know that.
The team has a very racist history, which is why it's so hilarious. Dan Snyder always talks about their traditions.
Their traditions,
their
right.
storied past.
I think they're. So, have you submitted this to the Redskins? What happens next through the poll? Washington Warriors. There we go.
Washington Warriors. So everything else, Department of Football, red tails, Washington monuments. This stuff just no one likes these other ideas. Somehow Warriors. Yeah. It grabs people. However, you're going to have a major issue at the trademark office with the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah,
sure. That's going to be confusing, and I don't think it's going to work. And Dan Snyder previously had applied for the trademark Washington Warriors back when there may have been arena football, and these problems emerged.
You've got the Giants, right? I mean, you got the San Francisco baseball Giants. You get New York football Giants.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
They can.
No, I thought right away of the Golden State Warriors.
You've got the Spurs basketball team, and there's the
but that's basketball, team. And this is football. Why not? Yeah.
Okay.
Michael has wants a weigh in here from Imperial Beach, California. Michael, good morning. What does anybody in Imperial Beach, California, care about the Redskins?
How you doing, Bill?
Hey,
and
Michael.
Gentlemen, and the ladies in the front office there.
I know.
I got a different take on this.
All right.
If we're going to change the Washington Redskins name because we find that offensive, what about the Jeep Cherokee? I think naming a car after a race of people is just as humiliating.
No, Jeep Cherokee is actually not a racial slur. Redskin is.
Okay.
I'm afraid that's not going to
work. I agree. Like, I always hear that
Cherokee's
argument.
a tribe, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you hear all this stuff about the Cleveland Indians or the Atlanta Braves or things like that, which, if I was running those teams, I wouldn't call them that, right?
No, they are also sort of odd.
Yeah. I mean, the tomahawk chop that the Braves do is one of the most racist things in sports. However, I'll at least hear the argument that this is honoring a tradition of Native Americans, right? I don't agree with that, but I'll hear that argument. Red skin, that is a slur. That's a slur.
It's not as offensive, say, as the N-word. It's but it is offensive, and the plaintiffs in the case.
It's in the same category.
It's in the same league.
It's in the same league.
They submitted 11 clips from 10 famous movies in which the word redskin is used, and it's only used in totally disparaging ways. With regard to killing Native Americans frequently.
Right.
And I thought that was pretty powerful.
I thought you mentioned Charles Krauthammer. I thought the Washington Post editorial, to me, was the clearest argument for it. Is that if you had a group of Native Americans sitting in a meeting in a room, they were right here, like around this table, right? You would not call them Redskins to their face.
It's archaic.
It's
not
an insult.
Yeah.
It's a racist insult, and you wouldn't do it. And if you wouldn't do that, then You should not name the team that. But that's just one of the issues Arthur has been out in front on this week. Also on food stamps, and it looks like there could be some more action in the Senate on unemployment insurance. We'll get to that on the other side of the break here with Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post. You too can weigh in by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. All you warriors, call in fast here.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Follows Arthur here in the next half hour, top of the hour, the next hour. Arthur Delaney here from Huffington Post, HuffingtonPost.com. People on food stamps considered felons in some states?
Well, yeah. I mean, in the popular imagination.
Yeah.
But in 1996, the big welfare reform happened in the midst of tough-on-crime politics at its peak. And the law banned any ex-con with a drug-related felony from food stamps for life. So you serve your time.
Yeah,
you can't have welfare or food stamps. Now,
and you can't vote either in a lot of states. But
right,
anyway.
so there's no paying your debt to society. You are just permanently screwed. Now they allowed states to waive or modify that ban, and all but 13 states had done so as of this year. But now, with the criminal justice reform movement, the war on drugs waning, other states are talking about undoing their food stamp felon bans. And California and Missouri, right now, the governors of those states are signing legislation that modifies or undoes those bans.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So
even California up until this point.
Yeah. They had a modified ban where you could only get food stamps if you waited, you prove you're in drug treatment, all because you'd had a felony on record. You already served your time. You're out of prison or whatever. You're off parole, and you still have to meet all these conditions that regular poor people without criminal records don't have to.
So pretty soon it may be all 50 states.
Maybe. I mean, these laws are put on the books with no debate.
Yeah.
Because someone who's tough on crime will propose it,
right,
and no one wants to be soft on crime, and that's the immediate demagoguing that would happen. So literally, no debate in 1996. David Vitter tried to do this. There was no debate. House and Senate last year approved additional bans for murderers and rapists and pedophiles. No one wants to argue about that. They quietly just took it out when food stamp legislation was merged in conference committee, where the grown-ups were at the table. We're not doing this David Vitter stuff.
But California, I see it just passed a bill that will allow people convicted of drug-related felonies to receive welfare and food stamps.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Missouri.
I wish I'd known that last week. I had dinner with the governor of California last Monday night, and I could have lobbied him on that. Right. I'll call him up today and do so. I think we mentioned this last week, but unemployment benefits, which did pass the Senate finally, and then the House, the Senate version lapsed before the House took any action. It looks like a couple of senators may come back and try it again. Huh?
They will, yeah. And today they're announcing their new bill. The previous bill would have been retroactive.
Yes.
So from December, when Congress let the benefits expire, through May, John Boehner ran out the clock on the Senate-passed bill. So these same two senators, Dean Heller of Nevada, Republican, and Jack Reed, Democrat from Rhode Island, are going to try again with a bill that brings the benefits back going forward. And it's not clear if anyone who was cut off after December will actually be able to get anything out of this bill, but people who newly run out of state benefits and are long-term unemployed would get benefits for the rest of the year under this new legislation. It's going to be the same story, though. Say they get enough Republicans to get it through the Senate. I don't see John Boehner really changing his tune, but it's interesting. It's remarkable that they're doing this again. And they'll have a press conference this morning, and I'll cover it for HuffingtonPost.com.
All right, we'll be looking for that at HuffingtonPost.com. And it's important that they do this, I think, and not just let John Boehner say, no, I don't want to bring it up for a vote, and everybody walk away from it and say it's impossible. I think it's important the Senate step up to the plate again and show at least who they stand for and who they're willing to fight for. Like you, Arthur Delaney, always fighting for those working families, even if the White House isn't. Arthur, thank you for coming in today, as always.
Thank you for having me.
Looking good.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you next week. And I'll be back with a quick story and then Igor Volsky at the top of the next hour.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Igor Volsky from Think Progress at the top of the next hour, Peter.
Big story out of China. Every summer around this time, they kick off their dog-eating festival.
Oh, how'd I miss that?
Yeah, it's the big dog-eating festival in China. Now, this year more than ever, activists are protesting and saying, hey, come on, guys, don't eat the dogs. But they have moved on with it. They're going to keep going, and they estimate that 10,000 dogs are eaten over the summer in China.
Actually, for all the billions of people that they have, that's not a lot of dogs.
Not bad. Not bad.
Still, it's a sick. Come on, China. Get with it. All right. We'll be right back for hour number 2.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think We couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Are you ready for a big Tuesday morning show? Sure hope so. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Tuesday morning, June 24. So good to see you today. Thanks for being part of the program here on Free Speech TV, nationwide, all across this great land of ours, and worldwide on Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKR TV. And on this big Tuesday morning, most of the focus still on Iraq, where John Kerry, Secretary of State, made a surprise emergency visit yesterday to meet with Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki and put the pressure on him to open up his government to some Sunni leadership so they can form a united government as a counter to the Sunni insurgents. Not sure still whether al-Maliki is the man to do that. The United States has serious doubts. Meanwhile, the insurgents continue to grab territory. They now control every single border crossing between Iraq and Syria, and the only border crossing between Iraq and Jordan. The Justice Department releasing yesterday the memo that they say authorizes the legal use of drones to kill Americans on foreign soil. A lot of that memo was redacted, but it's still a pretty scary step in executive power. I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about that. President Obama joining the First Lady yesterday at a White House summit on working families. We're going to talk about e-cigarettes today. Yes, and the moves now to clamp down on e-cigarettes and regulate them the same way we do regular cigarettes. And big primary battles in Mississippi in the Republican primary between Thad Cochran, incumbent Republican senator, and Tea Party challenger Chris McDaniel, and Charlie Rangel fighting for his life in the 13th Congressional District of New York State. That's the fare for Tuesday. Great show coming up. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Bill Press Show.
Supreme Court says EPA must regulate greenhouse gases. A big victory for the environment yesterday. Yeah, from the Roberts Supreme Court. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you this morning. Tuesday, June 24. How about it? Here we go on the Bill Press Show. Coming to you live from Washington, D.C. That's our nation's capital. And we will bring you up to date on what's happening here in Washington. This end of Pennsylvania Avenue at the Congress, and the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue at the White House, and in between, the Center for American Progress and Think Progress, and Igor Volsky. He's got
morning.
It covered. Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Very good.
All right.
Good beautiful day. Before the humidity sets in tomorrow, we have a beautiful day here in D.C.
Yeah.
So we're enjoying it in the studio.
Off to a good start.
Windowless studio.
I was... it was good to see you down at the center last week.
Yes.
I haven't been back in the center for a while since we used to broadcast from there. And to see your new head of Think Progress Action, is that what it's called?
Center for American Progress Action.
Center for American Progress Action. Governor Ted Strickland. Ohio, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good man.
Very good
great,
man.
Yeah.
Very easy and fun to work with.
Yeah. A lot of energy,
Yes.
a lot of good policies. Did a great job in Ohio. He is now the head of Center for American Progress Action Group. Is that what it's called?
Action Fund.
Action Fund. Yeah.
Action Fund. We fund the action.
And you have fun doing so.
Yes.
It is good to see you all today. Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can join the conversation at any time, whether you're listening or watching. Listening on your local Progressive Talk radio station, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter. Loved getting your acid comments on Twitter, at BP Show, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. With Igor, we have our entire team here this morning, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hey, good morning.
Hey yes, there. Indeed. All right. Alicia Cruz has the phones covered. She's back this week. And Cyprian Bolding, as always, keeping us looking good on the video stream and on Free Speech TV. We know, Igor, it was just a couple of weeks ago, we spent a lot of time talking about Karl Rove raising the question about perhaps former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton suffering brain damage. Of course, he never accused her of brain damage. He just said,
floating the theory,
exactly,
the possibility.
Kind of want to put it out there. So what do you do? How do you respond to something like that? Bill Maher was on The View yesterday, and Bill Maher said that basically you fight fire with fire. Here he is.
What Karl Rove did to her a couple of weeks ago, bringing about brain damage, and just saying, well, I'm not saying she does, I'm just putting it out there. Right. I wonder if Karl Rove's gay lover that he murdered Oh, I'm not saying that's definitely true. I'm just putting it out there. And I would welcome someone to say whether it's true or not.
There you go.
I love it.
If we're saying anything, yeah.
Floating possibilities.
Sure.
Take that, Carl Rove. Yeah. All right. Deny it. Yeah, deny it. Right? Look, he hasn't denied it. Therefore,
That's right.
must be something to it. That's how this stuff gets started. All right. Here we go. Hey, so with Igor Volsky this first half hour, and then Matt Gertz from Media Matters will be joining us a little bit later. Media Matters now on the warpath against the Daily Beacon.
Free Beacon.
Free Beacon, I'm sorry. Washington Free Beacon.
Though they do publish daily.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, right. In the next hour, Margaret Talev from Bloomberg News will be here, and Congresswoman Jackie Speier from California. We'll get right to it. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Yesterday, around lunchtime in the Woodley Park neighborhood of Washington, D.C., the Chipotle had a high-profile visitor. None other than Barack Obama showed up to get some lunch.
Getting out of the bubble again. Yet again. Yep.
Yeah.
Did he pay extra for the guacamole?
That's a good question. Guac does
No,
cost,
you do pay extra for the guacamole.
but whether or not he got it...
I want to know.
That's a good question.
On the house.
Well,
I hope he paid.
here's what his order was, for those wondering. He got the chicken burrito bowl,
By the way,
which is a burrito without the...
Yeah.
I mean, here's the deal.
No,
If you
that's the only
get-
way to go. Only way to go.
If you get one of those burritos...
Yes.
I mean, it's practically... I mean, you might as well eat a Big Mac.
Yeah.
Because those tortillas... shells are
delicious.
I love the delicious.
Sometimes I eat mine, then Brian doesn't finish his, and I finish his.
There you go. Well, the president got a chicken burrito bowl with the chicken. He had
all for it.
white rice.
No.
The tomato
Brown
sauce.
rice, brown rice,
The
brown
tomato salsa.
Okay.
Salsa verde,
Yes,
which is a medium
that's right.
spice.
That's what I do too.
Yeah, I go with the
That's good.
verde.
This is good.
He got lettuce. He added
Yes.
cheese. Which is
Oh.
No, it's not. Cheese is
Sometimes I
good.
go on and
Well,
off.
I mean,
the
at
cheese.
You
this
need your
point-
calcium.
And then he got the guac. And then he
Oh,
put
you got the
on
guac.
top. He got
Okay.
the guac.
Okay, there you go. Solid. Solid order.
But honestly, I mean, with the white rice
No,
and,
except
the,
no
and
beans.
the cheese
No beans.
and all
Black
this-
beans. No, I need black beans.
No beans.
Yeah,
But
black-
you know what? Pro tip, I don't put beans on mine either.
Oh,
That's right.
I like the beans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what? Screw it. Let's just go out to Chipotle right now. There's one right down the street.
Yeah, right?
go.
If only they serve breakfast.
My breakfast burrito bowl.
Man, wouldn't that be nice? Good news, bad news, depending on which side of the surface you're on. A new census study shows that there are more than 2,400 healthy great white sharks off the coast of California.
Oh my God.
This is good news because they have been depleting. People have been fishing for great white sharks and killing great white sharks because of, fears of what they might do. But they are thriving, they're growing, they're getting bigger. But they just, pointing out that, a little bit of awareness about how they really don't want to hurt us has gone a long way, and they're getting bigger, stronger, faster, and scarier.
Let me just tell you something. We live in California, in Inverness, California, which is the Point Reyes National Seashore, which is the breeding ground that's where they have all their little babies for white sharks. And they do like to eat people.
Oh,
put it this way, if you're on a surfboard, because they have bad eyesight, so they think you're a seal.
If you eat Chipotle, you're particularly a target.
Yes.
So it's
really
not safe to go
attracts
back
them.
in the water again, apparently. And nobody F's with the Jesus. John Turturro, famous for playing, one of the roles he's famous for playing is the Jesus in Big Lebowski. He is now trying to get control of the rights of that character from the Coen brothers, who own the rights to the movie, because he wants to make a spin-off movie about the bowler, Jesus. He said he wants to direct it, he wants to star in it, and he's aiming to make it in 2015. No word yet from the Coen brothers as to whether they're going to release the rights to Turturro to make that movie.
Yeah, the actor's got a really bad deal. I mean, John Goodman was saying several months ago that he gets nothing from all the merchandising and everything else that they did for that movie. They get
one of the
nothing at all.
greatest characters of all time.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
That he plays in that
Yeah.
movie.
No licensing for you.
You got it. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. Where do we start? Think Progress. You got so many good stories up there today, Igor. Let's start with the lead story, how big tobacco has made cigarettes so much deadlier than they used to be. By the way, in the next hour, we're going to be talking with Congresswoman Jackie Speier about her campaign against e-cigarettes, which is sort of the next wave. But you're talking about regular cigarettes, right?
And the statistic
already deadly.
Yeah, the statistic is really shocking because a smoker today, Bill, has more than twice the risk of lung cancer than a smoker 50 years ago. Right? We always think we've made all this progress as a country.
Right.
We've labeled these cigarettes. People are smoking less, which they are.
And I thought the cigarettes were less deadly.
Oh,
but
they're
you're saying
not. They now have a filter on them that's different, and so it causes people to inhale a lot more smoke than they would have. It makes the smoke feel less harsh than it did before, so they take larger puffs. That's a problem. The cigarettes have all kinds of flavors, so they taste better. They have additives like sugar, which makes the whole experience so much smoother. And you put all that together, and it's not a safe product. It's more dangerous, and smoking's still one of the top killers in this country.
So, well, anyhow, there are all the more reason not to smoke. But the idea that, the public perception is that we've got that sort of under control now. Some people are still out there smoking. Some people just can't kick the habit. But you're saying that the idea that they have, so with fewer smokers, the cigarettes are still more dangerous.
Still more dangerous. 42 million Americans still smoke. With all the kind of public education we've done over the years, we took the ads down. We said no advertising, particularly to kids. 42 million are still addicts, are still smoking, and the products are far less safe than they were.
I still sort of get taken aback when I see a young person smoking. And I have to say, I've seen several people do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're between 20 and 30 and you smoke, I mean, we know the dangers of smoking. I mean, we've grown up saying how bad it is, and yet there are still a lot of people that do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've smoked for years. I understand it. There's certain, societal, cultural, but the kind of where this is moving now is young people are still smoking. They're obviously smoking less than they did several years ago or decades ago, but they're now moving to e-cigarettes, which are this. We've talked about this before. These kind of nicotine delivery tubes that kind of just emit water vapor, and the question is, how safe are these products? Because they're not very well regulated. The FDA just issued regulations. And B, is this a ploy by tobacco companies who have now gotten into the e-cig game to get people addicted to nicotine and eventually move them on to cigarettes? And that's an area that Congress is exploring right now, trying to figure out, do we need advertising restrictions? How do we regulate these products to make sure we don't have a whole new generation that we're addicting to nicotine and introducing them to smoking?
Yeah, there's no doubt that's where they're heading.
But you see these e-cigs everywhere, Peter. I mean, you walk down the street, young people in particular.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be talking with Jackie Speier about in the next hour as well. But I didn't realize this story about making existing cigarettes so much more deadly than they are. Speaking about deadly dangers, Dick Cheney's on the warpath.
Oh, boy.
We have heard him, saw him last week in the Wall Street Journal, and then on the Sunday shows again. Here he is, the architect of the war in Iraq, blaming the war in Iraq on Barack Obama.
He is dramatically limiting the capability of future presidents to deal with crises by virtue of the policies he's taken. Now, I don't intend any disrespect for the president, but I fundamentally disagree with him. I think he's dead wrong in terms of the course he's taken this nation, and I think we're in for big trouble in the years ahead because of his refusal to recognize reality and because of his continual emphasis upon getting the U.S. basically to withdraw from that part of the world.
Maybe somebody could point out that we're in big trouble today because he started this damn war in the first place. But I saw the article on Think Progress. He basically is accusing the president of treason.
Yeah, former smoker Dick Cheney is really at it. So vote back down. I've made the argument that people should really stop listening to this guy because, look, it's one thing to argue about policy and whether or not we should have gone in and did it make the world safer. I mean, we can have that debate. There's people on both sides of that argument still. There are. But what Cheney does is he launches these very personal and vicious attacks, arguing that the president is purposely, as he did in the editorial, trying to take America down a notch so that he can weaken its standing in the world, and then somehow, I don't know what the end point is.
I've seen this, right? You've heard this from Dinesh D'Souza. You've heard it from Cheney. What's the point? What would the goal be? If that's the goal of Barack Obama, what's the point?
I think the argument is that Obama and others don't believe America is a great nation, don't believe it's a superpower, and think we should all kind of even out the world and have a kumbaya moment where we pass around the smoke pipe and all get together. And I think that's kind of the notion that there's equality across the world and there's no one great America to compete with.
Well, also this idea that Cheney, I've heard him say now 2 or 3 times, that with President Obama, once he got Osama bin Laden, he figured...
Done. Over.
War on terror, over. No need to worry about any more about any enemies of the United States. President Obama has never done that, has never said that. He certainly has continued going after the enemies, those enemies who are out there. I mean, look at all the... we saw the drone memo released yesterday. Yeah. Look at all the drone attacks. Look at all the Al-Qaeda leaders who've been killed. We just got the guy that went after the ringleader of the attack in Benghazi. I mean, on and on and on. This president certainly has not put his foot on the brakes when it comes to pursuing our enemies. So where's Dick Cheney get this stuff? He just pulls it out of his butt.
Well, yeah, it's a nonsensical argument that if you really believe that someone doesn't have America's interests in mind, I mean, then you can't have a real policy conversation with that person. But the other thing is, if you look at what his prescription is moving forward, so in that same interview where he basically accused Obama of treason, he laid out a plan that sounds a lot like what Obama is already doing, right? So help the Iraqis with identifying military targets that they can then use against ISIS, this Sunni separatist group that's causing all this trouble. Send in advisors into the region. Take tactical strategic maneuvers if necessary. I mean, this is Obama's plan. I mean, surely Cheney's idea is kind of far more robust and muscular, but the parameters are very much what Obama himself has proposed.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that Cheney cannot stop talking, and George W. Bush, to his credit, is just
to his credit, absolutely,
is just silent.
Yeah,
right. And it's not Cheney's role as the architect of the war to be out there blaming it all on President Obama. But you can't shut him up. Igor Volsky here from Think Progress, thinkprogress.org. Lots more stories coming up on the break, and you're welcome to join the conversation at any time at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful?
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
And, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, we'll talk Media Matters with Matt Gertz in the next half hour. Right now joined by Igor Volsky for his regular Tuesday visit here to the Bill Press Show. Lots going on at thinkprogress.org. So, Igor, there's a good reason for people out of Missouri to go to church here. Even more of a reason, I guess, huh? Joplin, Missouri?
Oh, yeah. One way for you to find Jesus out in Missouri, and that is with a gun, with an AR-15 gun. Yeah, right. A Father's Day special, bring your child, and for every child you bring to church, you get an extra chance to win an AR-15. Yeah.
How sick.
Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition.
Yeah, right. The head pastor there put it's Ignite Church out in Missouri, Joplin, Missouri, put out a whole YouTube video kind of promoting this raffle they were doing, and the quote here is really remarkable because he's kind of encouraging people to sign up. And he says, so get your butts to church. If you're late, don't cry to me that you're a pansy and you cannot set your alarm, all right? You're a big boy. You got big balls between your legs. You're a dad, right? Yeah.
Get out of here.
That's right. Real men, AR-15s, go to church.
This is the pastor?
Yeah, helping them find Jesus, one gun at a time.
Don't wake up on time with your big balls and come to the church and get your guns.
That's right.
Don't be no pansy.
Don't be no pansy.
Don't be no pansy.
Ain't no pansies in my congregation.
Oh, no. Pastor Heath Mooneyham.
That's right.
Oh, God. I'm
Good
telling
pastor.
you. Wouldn't know it without Think Progress. ThinkProgress.org. Igor Volsky, thank you.
The Bill Press Show.
Guys joke about man boobs, but it's not so funny at the pool or
Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live. You said 5, right? 5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much. I would get more hamsters. I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood. I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna. I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks. Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday morning, June 24. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our nation's capital. We're brought to you today in part by the National Education Association, our good teachers of America, making a difference in every classroom in America every day, you bet, under President Dennis Van Rokel. And for more about their good work, go to NEA, that's their website, NEA.org. Well, I remember the days when we progressives were very, very short-handed because there were a lot of people complaining about the liberal media and attacking the so-called liberal media, media watchdogs all on the right, and we never had anybody protecting us or representing us on the left. Well, Now, we do, of course, with Media Matters for America. Been around now, 10 years?
10 years, yeah.
10 years, just about. Founded, of course, by David Brock, who's still the head of Media Matters for America. And the Deputy Research Director for Media Matters, Matt Gertz, joins us in studio this morning. Matt, good to see you again. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you, too. Thanks for having me.
Glad you guys are there on many fronts. I always say you watch or you listen to Rush Limbaugh so we don't have to, right?
We do what we can, yeah.
You watch Fox News every minute of every day so we don't have to. And you listen to all those other Yahoo talk radio people and basically call them out on their lies and everything. And most recently, as I've been reading, you have been on the warpath against a relatively new website in Washington called the Washington Free Beacon. Why?
So the Free Beacon is an interesting case. You mentioned that Media Matters was started about 10 years ago. Think Progress and the Center for American Progress were as well. And ever since then, conservatives have been trying to find a parallel, trying to start a new organization, a new news site, something that does the kind of work that we do and that Think Progress does. And the Center for American Freedom was started up in 2012 as basically like a parody of the Center for American Progress, with Free Beacon as their sort of Think Progress outlet.
2012.
2012, yes.
Okay.
And so that was started up by a GOP operative, Michael Goldfarb, who worked on the McCain campaign. The editor-in-chief over there is Matthew Continetti, who was previously at the Weekly Standard and a couple of other conservative outlets. His big claim to fame is writing a book-length explanation of how the media was too mean to Sarah Palin in 2008.
Oh, yeah. We all picked on Sarah Palin. Yes. Poor girl.
The Free Beacon does a lot of odd things. One of the things that they do that gets problematic for the news cycle and for us is that they've been doing a lot of reporting on Hillary Clinton and trying to dig up some old dirt from 20, 30 years ago. And those stories tend to enter into the news cycle. And so while we generally don't pay a lot of attention to the Beacon, when one of the stories is getting pickup, it starts to deserve our attention.
Well, so are they the ones who have been reporting on these Hillary or the Clinton papers that have been released from the Clinton Library?
That's exactly right. So they had a story back in February about the papers of Diane Blair, who is a very close friend of Hillary Clinton's. And then more recently, they've published what they call the Hillary tapes, which are basically an interview that she did with, I believe, Esquire in the mid-1980s about a case that she worked on in the 1970s, where she was a court-appointed
public defender,
basically, who was defending a accused rapist of a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah. Now, so do they have their what's the problem? Do they have their facts right? Are they putting out making stuff up, or is it just that it's a right-wing slant, or?
Sure. So there's a couple of different issues here. One of them is that the sort of overarching theme of the attack on Clinton's work as a lawyer is basically, it cuts to the heart of the American judicial system. If you can't be guaranteed good counsel when you're accused of a crime, then the whole system kind of falls apart. Where we really got interested, though, is the process by which these stories were assembled. And the way that they were put together. And it turns out what's come out over the last couple of days is that they haven't just had a reporter going out to this archive and looking for stories, but they've had on retainer a basically opposition research firm that's run by the former head of the RNC research department. They've basically been paying this guy to generate stories for them. And none of this is ever really disclosed. I mean, there's a byline on the stories of the person who wrote them up. But that's sort of curious and certainly not something that is generally accepted practice. Obviously, opposition research is a big part of the news media and how it works today. And you have a lot of different people who generate this sort of research and try to get reporters to write stories based on it. What's new is actually cutting out the sort of middleman here and paying the firm, who has a number of other clients, including Republican candidates and I believe the Republican National Committee as well, to go get the stories for you.
Yeah.
That's new and I think very concerning, and something that certainly the rest of the media should keep in mind when they're seeing these stories on the Free Beacon's website.
So if I understand correctly, then what you're saying, you've got this website, it's the Free Beacon, it presents itself as a journalistic endeavor, right?
Sure.
I mean, this is just one of many sources where you can get your news, but in this case, the news is being generated by a Republican opposition research firm, basically an arm of the RNC, or a firm that is doing work exclusively for conservative Republican candidates.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's impossible to tell, how much...
And they do not reveal this.
Exactly, which makes it impossible to tell what their role is, what stories they're working on, if there are stories that have more conflicts of interest because of their involvement. It's just impossible to tell because of the way they've set this up.
All right, so here you have news source, when in fact the news source, it's stuff all coming basically from Republican operatives. Isn't that the same as Fox News?
I mean, it's a great point. Fox
right?
News...
I mean, I consider Fox News the communications arm of the Republican National Committee.
Sure,
for the most part. Mm-hmm. I mean, there may be an occasional exception. Megyn Kelly last week going after Dick Cheney. Bravo. She broke the mold there a little bit.
The reason that was so notable is because it was so far off what they normally do.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, right. So isn't that kind of are they in the same league?
Conservatives are going to be conservatives. I think that's I don't think anyone's expecting the Washington Free Beacon to provide balanced reporting and provide the perspective of the left, no more than you would expect a liberal outlet to do that for the right. The problem becomes the sort of hidden interests and the conflicts of interest that are created by having this opposition research firm basically doing the groundwork for you without anyone knowing and getting paid for it.
Right. At the same time, there's some things, and I forget now, Peter, but a couple of times, you've got to say there's some things that I've seen I don't read the Washington Beacon every day, or the Free Beacon, right? But there are a couple of times that I've gone there because I've heard about things that they've done, montages or things that they put together, which were pretty clever, pretty funny. So they have a lively satire section. That's it, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's not strictly political talking points. They do it in a humorous way and then creative way, I think, sometimes.
I know one thing. They did a montage of the Reverend Al Sharpton making mistakes on the teleprompter. Now, having a career in television, if anybody did that of me, they could make me look foolish too, right? There are times when you say things wrong, you read things wrong, or you make mistakes, and they did, and it was funny. Maybe not fair, but it was funny.
I like their movie reviews too, to be honest with you. I think that they do some pretty good work on that, which is sort of separate from the rest of this, obviously.
But it's good to point out who these people kind of really are and where their sources are coming from, and that's what Media Matters has been trying to do with the with the Free Beacon. Have you had any? I'm going to come back to Fox because this has been you've been really on the I think done great work in pointing out some of the conflicts of interest and sourcing for Fox News. Are they getting any better or just digging in?
I mean, the most interesting thing that we've noticed lately about Fox is that Dick Morris has started to creep back into the rotation.
No,
he's not on contract or anything, but there's been there was a period where he was just gone totally from the airwaves, and now he's starting to come back. And why you need to do that, I don't really know.
They don't need him.
No.
I mean, seriously, he has like zero credibility anymore, I think, right?
Well, I think Josh Barrow pointed out on Twitter the other day that if you have someone who you know is 100% wrong, that's as useful to you as someone that you know is 100% right. You just pick the opposite and you're fine. I mean,
yeah.
The predictive power is identical. So.
The media wars, yes, the Media Matters on the job. Now we've got to watch out for Fox and watch out for the Washington Free Beacon as well. 866-55-PRESS. Matt Gertz is the Deputy Research Director for Media Matters here in the studio with us. We'll be right back and welcome your comments or questions about anything to do media related on the right or left. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, we're talking media wars with Matt Gertz, who is Deputy Research Director for Media Matters. Matt, thanks again for coming in. You know, I was just wondering, as we were talking about Fox News and about Washington Free Beacon, trying to be totally fair, right? Okay. Can one accuse MSNBC of doing the same thing on the left?
I mean, I think to a large extent, MSNBC is trying to, in a very real way, carve out the same sort of niche on the left. I mean, they are trying to appeal to an explicitly liberal audience and sort of bring in liberals to the stations. I don't think it's quite the same, just because I've never seen the sort of level of conspiracy mongering at MSNBC that I've seen from Fox on the right. I mean, Fox has a habit of hosting these people who are entirely not credible to sort of spout off on these sort of wildly unhinged theories and sort of promote them over time. They did a series of interviews with an author who claimed that President Obama should be impeached over the last couple of weeks, just sort of floating that out there. Maybe impeachment would be a good idea. Who's to say? You decide. And that's just not really something you see as much from MSNBC, and I think that that's sort of the key factor. It's not really, are they trying to appeal to the left or the right, but like at what point does the sort of need to have established facts kick in? And at Fox, it doesn't really seem to all that often.
Remember with the release of Sergeant Bergdahl as well, Lou Dobbs had a shrink on Fox Business who suggested that this showed that President Obama was insane.
Oh, well, they're big on the shrinks. I mean, they have people who do that on staff, and they just come on and say, oh, so what does this say about this person's mental state? And that sort of, snap pop psychology tends to be pretty terrible and thin. But yeah, that's sort of...
The other, I'd have to say, the other difference that you'll see on MSNBC is you will hear... And I'm not just talking about Joe Scarborough in the morning. I'm talking about once you get to the liberal side of MSNBC, you will hear people critical of President Obama on MSNBC. I mean, hosts, liberal hosts on MSNBC, critical of President Obama. You never heard Sean Hannity and company critical of George Bush while he was in the White House. I mean,
certainly not when he was
the party line.
Certainly not when he's riding high. I think that as it's sort of as the presidency started cratering, I think you would see a little bit more criticism later on. But I think you're largely right. Sean Hannity is basically the mouthpiece of the Republican National Committee. He's for whatever the party's for at any given time. I think that there's no real doubt about that.
I have to say, last night we had a party downtown for the new press secretary, Josh Earnest, the White House Correspondents Association, and we hosted a reception for him, and I was there and talking to somebody, and a conservative, I'm not going to name names here, but a conservative reporter came up to the two of us who were standing there, and she put her arm on me and she said to this other guy, I just want to tell you something about Bill Press. He's not in the bag. Said he may be a liberal, but he's not in the bag.
He's half in the bag.
I'm not sure that's the right term.
But what she meant was, that I'm
in
not
the tank,
in the tank,
right? Yeah.
But she said in the bag. But and I know what she meant, and I said, I did damn right. She said, because he always asks tough questions. I don't get my talking points from the DNC.
People who listen to this show know damn well that that's true.
And I think that's generally true of people on the left. We just call it as we see it. Yeah. That's a big difference. I got to ask you quickly, just about a minute left. Ed Klein's out with a new book now, right? I mean, what is this guy? Where does he get his stuff?
Ed Klein makes all of his stuff up. That's okay. So one of two things is possible. Either Ed Klein is the most brilliant reporter in Washington. He's the best sourced. He's so good that he can get inside details from personal conversations between Bill and Hillary Clinton, even though he's previously reported that Hillary Clinton is a lesbian and that Chelsea was conceived when Bill raped her. And nonetheless, he's still getting all of these stories from people close to the Clintons. Or he's making it all up. You decide which of those is more plausible. I'm going with making it up until, proven otherwise.
Yeah, and now he has this big story out that the Obamas had a great big fight on some vacation and slept in separate bedrooms, and
all of the stories that Ed Klein comes up with are sort of carefully calibrated to be perfect for the news cycle. So you've got stuff like that. You've got Barack Obama ordered Hillary Clinton to say that Benghazi was about a video, which if true would be huge. but it's not true.
All right.
You've got Hillary Clinton is close to death, basically, according to her doctors, who for some reason
people,
talk dead
but
fine.
And they sell this stuff, and there are too many gullible people out there who believe it. Oh, thank God for Media Matters. Glad you're out there. Thanks, Matt, for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
MediaMatters.org. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, good morning. It's like the wedding feast at Cana. We always save the best till last. We got a lot of good stuff coming up here in our third hour. Actually, the first 2 hours have been pretty good, too. But hour number 3, Margaret Talev, who covers the White House for Bloomberg News, will be here in studio with us, as will Congresswoman Jackie Speier from California, who is leading the charge on e-cigarettes. All of that on our video stream at youtube.com/TalkerTV, TAWKRTV. We lose you on free speech, so shift on over to Talker TV so you can be sure to grab this important third hour coming up. Good to have you with us.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, President Obama today. Busy day at the White House. He and the Vice President will meet with the Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, in the Oval Office. And then later in the afternoon, the President will host the 2013 President's Cup team to the White House. The Vice President will also be there. That is this afternoon at 6:30, actually. And our briefing today with new Press Secretary Josh Earnest will be at 12:45 p.m. Margaret Talev covers the White House for Bloomberg News, and she'll be our guest at the top of the next hour.
Is
Stay
the
tuned.
Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
U.S.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Big victory for the environment yesterday at the Roberts Supreme Court, of all places. Congress isn't doing anything about global warming, but the Supreme Court giving the EPA the green light. Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, June 24. Good to see you this morning. And thank you for joining us here on the Bill Press Show, coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station all across this great land of ours and around the globe, worldwide on our video stream, Talker TV, youtube.com/Talker, T-A-W-K-R, Talker TV. Great to see you this morning. Don't forget, you can join the conversation anytime by giving us a call to our toll-free line at 866-55-PRESS. And you can throw a question to any of us, just like Margaret Talev throws questions to the press secretary down at the White House every day, representing Bloomberg News at the White House. Joining us in studio this morning. Hello, Margaret.
Good morning.
How are you? It's been a busy day at the White House lately, huh? I mean, a change of press secretaries and President Obama escaping.
The bear is loose, and we're back in Iraq, or about to be. Like,
right.
What's that about?
I love that phrase. The bear is loose. Yeah. This is the new thing now for. In fact, that's what
he's a bear, because when you think of President Obama, bear immediately springs to mind.
Yeah, totally.
But the most emaciated bear of all time.
But he's the one who used that phrase first, isn't he?
Well, I mean, what's he going to say? The gazelle is loose. The antelope is loose. Bear's got more of a poll-tested certainty to it. I think actually that this all sprang from, even back in the 08 campaign, he would, the image of a bear with his leg sort of caught in a trap, that sort of idea, I think, is how he felt really penned in. He used to go jogging around the mall when he was a senator and liked to go for long strolls. And I remember him telling us he always liked to blend into a crowd and be the one observing other people. Remember, once upon a time, when he wrote good memoirs, he was more about kind of receding and watching other people. And when the spotlight's on you, you don't get to be that guy anymore. So the less cynical part of me thinks he was just using an expression. I'm like a bear with my leg trapped in a cage. But the more cynical part of me is like, a bear, he's strong and hairy. He's manly. He's ready to tackle the new majority leader with his claws.
Yeah, I think they poll tested it.
Exactly. It's possible.
All right, Margaret here with our team, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Okay, guys, and Alicia Cruz on the phones. Don't forget, she's waiting for your call at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding on the video camera, keeping us looking good. We know the president yesterday was at the Summit on Working Families. One of the things he talked about was a minimum wage. Remember last week he said he actually thought that it would be good if his daughters had experience working a minimum wage job.
For Steven Spielberg. No.
Yeah, right. Anyhow, Conan O'Brien had some comments on that last night on the show.
Obama has made a pretty interesting comment. President Obama said he wants his daughters to work minimum wage jobs because it builds character.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, I thought that was good. Yeah. Yeah, the president then announced he'll be raising the minimum wage to $50 an hour.
That's what it takes, that little incentive, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Daddy, 1010 is not enough.
I can't buy my Tory birches.
Yeah, exactly. There we go.
Well, but this really does. The thing is that when he says things like that, and a certain constituency hears it, they're like, wow, he really gets it. But it was just reported a couple weeks ago when we were all in Palm Springs with him that the reason why his older daughter had already been out on that trip and had sort of joined us there was that she was interning for a Halle Berry Steven Spielberg project. I mean, forget about how much you get paid an hour. You have opportunities when you're the president or the president's daughters.
Yeah.
As the Clintons are talking about now, Hillary Clinton is trying to make this case about, look, people don't associate me with rich people who try to shelter taxes because I care about the working person. And that's fine. She's got a record that demonstrates that over the decades. But for the last 20 or 30 years. Same with the Obamas for the last dozen years or so. I mean, they have not really had the struggles of ordinary people. They've left that behind.
No.
But have they been truly well off?
Yeah.
Well, that's the new threshold.
Speaking of Palm Springs, is there anything to the story that the Obamas are looking for a house in Palm Springs?
Well, I'm sure we'll read
you were out there with them. Was that what they were doing? Were they house shopping?
I was in a van thousands of feet behind them and didn't really ever see him. Look, I mean, it's not like we know what he's doing when we're on these trips. We just have theoretical proximity to him in case theoretically something happened and we needed to get closer to him.
Okay.
I can't imagine that Palm Springs is really where they want to put down their permanent roots afterwards. It's where they're going to live. I mean, I think the people, all those of us who cover them, all assume that they're it's somewhere between Chicago, D.C., and New York for where they're actually going to live.
I think they're big city people.
Yeah. But they like being out there.
There are a lot of golf courses in Palm
He likes playing golf. And their decorator,
it.
Michael Smith, whose partner is the U.S. ambassador to Spain, they have a house in a gated community on top of a hill there. And I've only seen it from the outside, and you can see magazine spread photos of it, but it's a stunning place. And I think both of them really enjoy being out there when they can be.
All right. Margaret Talev with us, and don't forget your call's welcome. We'll we'll get into all of the big news at the White House in just a second, but first, with the big headlines of the day.
Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Breaking news this morning from the BBC. Andy Coulson has been found guilty in the phone hacking trial. Remember, this has been going on for years
How about
now.
that woman, Rebecca
Brooks has been found not guilty.
Oh.
Yes, indeed. It's a big verdict. Coulson, the only one being hit with any kind of, with any guilty charge in the whole scenario. This is on the 138th day of the trial in England. So.
Wow, that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. Yeah, absolutely. Last night, Tim Duncan from your world champion San Antonio Spurs went on the David Letterman program.
He's a Spurs fan here.
He made a big announcement. This is news. Okay, I'm not just putting it out here.
Any excuse to
he
talk
is
about
going
the Spurs.
This is a big deal.
It's a big deal. He's opting into his contract. He's exercised his $10.3 million player option and will play next season. This means that the big three from the Spurs, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker, are all back for another season. So, big news.
Well, LeBron will be back, too, so watch out.
We'll see where LeBron ends up. There's already talk of him moving around. We'll see what happens.
Again?
Really? Well, he could opt out of his contract, and either he stays with Miami or goes somewhere else. But people are looking at him. It could happen. He could leave. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
All right.
And Carl's Jr. is testing a new burger on their menu.
God.
It is the mashed potato burger.
Oh, my God.
It is exactly what it sounds like. It is a burger that they just throw a big scoop of mashed potatoes on top of and put between the bun. Yes, it's called, they're calling them mashers. You can either get a fried chicken version of the sandwich, or the burger version of the sandwich. The Big Chicken Masher comes at 900 calories, 47 grams of fat, and the Burger Masher comes in at 790 calories, 42 grams of fat. Comparatively speaking, a Big Mac at McDonald's has 550 calories and 29 grams of fat. So let's load up.
Big Mac's now a dietary option.
Yes, exactly.
That is fantastic news, actually.
Yeah, watching my weight. I'll have a Big Mac.
Exactly. That is not paleo either. I'm
No,
just gonna say.
no, not even close.
God, can you believe it? Yeah. Or maybe we'll have a Chipotle burrito bowl.
Whatever the bear's having, I'll have
bowl.
what the bear is
The
having.
burrito bowl instead. What the bear is having, right? Certainly, the briefings lately and the news from the White House and the president's time has really been taken up by Iraq lately. Yeah. All right. I mean,
Time for something serious.
yeah, time for something serious here. But I mean, you almost have to feel sorry for him in the sense that this is the one thing. Obamacare is working now. We got that on the shelf, part of our legacy. We ended the war in Iraq. We got that on the shelf, and now suddenly it's off the shelf and back in his lap.
Well, it's the one thing that he didn't do. I mean, it's sort of all the other stuff that we're talking about here, whether it's Benghazi, the buck stopped with him, whether it's, Obamacare, it was his idea, he's the one who structured it. But this was like the war that he ran against. You could argue it's the way he got elected, right? Is to have been opposed to the Iraq war from the start, thereby galvanizing the party and having, sort of more purity of stance than Hillary did in the run, way back when. And so he was always working to get out of there as fast as he could, reasonably could.
Mm-hmm.
But this issue with the lack of a SOFA, the Status of Forces Agreement, that was on the Iraqis. The Maliki government and the Iraqi people at the time were just like, we're done with you guys. We're ready for you to go. We don't care. No immunity for your people. Just go. And so the U.S. gets out. Predictably, this happens, although it might have happened anyway, right? And now the same people who got us into the war in the first place are going on TV talking about Obama's failures and his weaknesses. So it's tremendously frustrating for him. But that's the political side. The reality side is that this is a major security threat. It's a major. If all the reports about ISIS or ISIL are to be believed, this is a major problem. And so put the politics aside, he's got to deal with it.
No, right. And the New York Times reporting this morning that the insurgents now control every single border post between Iraq and Syria. Yeah. So they have that entire thing. And the one border post between Iraq and Jordan, they also control.
Yeah.
I mean, if you control getting in and out of the country, you control the country, or you have certainly a lot of influence.
Jordan is this totally beleaguered ally of ours, right? In that part of the world, they're already experiencing huge problems because of the exodus of refugees from every place else, and now they've got this, and ISIS has set up geographically and financially the makings of its own country inside another country, at the border of another country, that we have issues with for opposite reasons. So, the politics are incredibly complicated.
So I think the big question to me is, I mean, the president and John Kerry yesterday said the same. I've been saying all along, the solution here is a unified government. The Sunnis and the Shiites have to come together from a unified government, which Maliki has never been willing to do. What makes them think that could, number one, that they would do it, and number two, that they have time to do it?
Nothing. They don't think either one of those things. What are they going to say? I mean, what are they going to say? So right now, what they're really doing is trying to keep, they're trying to keep a Shiite-backed government together and trying to find a way for Maliki to go replace himself with somebody else that everybody can live with who's less polarizing. Or somehow, I guess, for the Iraqis to figure out their own governing sharing arrangement that changes the way the government works, even if you keep it as one country.
But meanwhile, the Sunni insurgents, ISIL or ISIS, are not going to sit back and say, okay, we're going to give you a year to figure it out.
No, that's why we're sending 300 people in to scope out targets for potential strikes. I mean,
that's why they're there.
Paving the way for, I don't know if it's paving the way for an airstrike campaign so much as it's paving the way for targeted airstrikes. Presumably on an individual basis, to try to corral or take out key aspects of ISIS or ISIL. I don't know how immediate it's going to be. This may be something that plays out over the summer, over a period of months or several weeks, not days or weeks. But there's sort of a two-track thing going on. One is how do you get the Iraqis to form a government after these April elections that is maybe either not going to have Maliki at the top or is going to have a really chastened Maliki at the top with different power-sharing arrangements.
Right.
And then on a separate track, who's the U.S. going to bomb?
There's a funny question here about boots on the ground. I mean, let's just be honest. These military advisors, they're soldiers, right?
It all depends on how you define boots. But what's the central...
And what are they? I was going to say, what are they wearing? Are they wearing flip-flops? No, they're wearing boots. So
they don't need shoes because they have their bear claws. It's
She's into bears as well.
Maybe their feet aren't on the ground because they're in a convoy, or I don't know. They're in a room that doesn't touch the ground.
We're just kidding ourselves. These are military. These are troops.
They're not walking around with guns, hiding behind a hillside, looking to take somebody out. They are trying to figure out how to do air operations in a targeted manner, but they have to be there to see stuff for themselves because the U.S. doesn't trust the Iraqi intelligence and military services to figure out on its own what the state of play is and to convey that to U.S. And the U.S. wants to make sure if the U.S. is actually going to do anything that could have some lethal consequences, that the U.S. knows what it's getting into.
Okay, pick a number. $500 million, whatever we spent, training the Iraqi army and equipping the Iraqi army. What did we get for it?
I don't know.
Pretty pathetic, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, they just, you want these tanks? Here, you can have them. I mean, we're going home.
These are the consequences of war.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of war where there are, centuries or millennia of interplay that's way more complicated than, who's the U.S. president or what are the U.S. interests. This is like among them. It's not really.
Yeah, and they've been fighting over this since the 7th century, right?
Well, and this is the regional stuff that's been really burgeoning at a time that when you overlap it against the Arab Spring and you overlap it against mobile social networking and the sort of stuff that connects all of us, but also helps jihadist groups or terrorist groups be interconnected across land borders and that sort of thing. Yes. And these are all these trends are happening at the same time.
Sure.
And
they can recruit people from all around the world.
And there are implications if the U.S. puts its thumb on this scale to help the Maliki government keep hold. That has an impact that may not be the impact that we necessarily want or foresee on our calculus with Syria, on our calculus with Iran, and so. Part of the reason I think the White House is taking its time on this is that part of Obama's governing foreign policy sort of mantra is avoid unintended consequences. Mm-hmm. Take a deep breath, figure out what you're doing before you start it.
Maybe we should have done that before we started the war in Iraq. Somebody should have done it. Margaret Talev here from Bloomberg News on the Tuesday edition of the Bill Press Show, 866-55-PRESS. When we come back, Margaret, let's talk about on the domestic front, some of the priorities and any possibilities for action. We'll be right back. Your call's welcome.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers. right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Congresswoman Jackie Speier all about e-cigarettes in the next half hour here on the show. Right now, Margaret Talev is here, covers the White House for Bloomberg News at Bloomberg.com. The president yesterday and the First Lady at the Summit for Working Families, White House Summit of Working Families. Are we going to see any action there? All we heard yesterday is that we wanted to start a conversation.
Right. He's actually been having the conversation for like 7 years.
Yeah.
But it tends to come out at crucial times, like shortly before midterm elections or before his own elections or before key primaries. I mean, I'll put aside my cynical hat and say that these are issues that the president does care about and does promote and has consistently promoted, such as, some paid maternity or paternity, some paid parental leave, better child care options, this sort of thing. But this Congress has made clear it's not doing anything, right?
Right.
And so if he can't do it by executive action, then he's just talking about it.
And one more conversation. And the White House also indicated last week that they are, maybe it was Valerie Jarrett who said this, that they're hopeful that now we have Kevin McCarthy, who's from California and from the Central Valley, where there are a lot of immigrants live, that now the Republican Party under his leadership, with him as majority leader, might be more open to doing something about immigration reform in the Congress this year. Do you buy that?
No. They're not.
Do they buy it?
No, they're not really more hopeful. What they're doing, I think, is that they are making sure that their positioning on this has been, we are open to talking with Republicans. We have faith that there's always an opportunity. We will never say it's over. Because they are waiting for the Republicans to make the first move, for the Republicans to say, we're shutting this down. It's not happening this year, so that they can then come out with Jay Johnson's proposals, which have been ready now over a period of weeks.
Yeah. In the meantime, and it's going to be hard to get anything done.
I think at one point they may have thought that they wanted to give Kevin McCarthy a chance, but he made pretty clear in recent days that he's not prepared to move.
Oh yeah,
anytime soon.
He's never been a big proponent of it.
When you look at how Eric Cantor lost, if you want to be majority leader for more than a week or two.
Thank you, Margaret, for coming in. See you later at the White House. Okay.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new. If I could have an extra 5 years to live. You said 5, right? 5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much. I would get more hamsters. I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna. I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks. Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
8:33 minutes after the hour now, the Bill Press Show here from our nation's capital in our studio on Capitol Hill. Brought to you this morning by the International Association, catch it out here, of the Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers Union. Put them all together, you've got the SMART Union, men and women of the SMART Union under President Joseph Nigro, giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, and you can find out more about their good work at smart-union.org. That's our website, smart-union.org. We love being on Capitol Hill, as we tell you, because it's easy for members of Congress to stop by on their way to work. And delighted to welcome back to the studio a good friend of the program and a good friend of mine for many years, Congresswoman Jackie Speier from California's 14th Congressional District. Congresswoman, always good to see you.
Great to be with you. And I get a free cup of coffee, too. How about that? Huh?
I'm telling you, all the goodies that come with it. So we have new leadership in the House, including a Californian as now majority leader. Is this going to make any difference? Is the House going to be more eager to take up important issues and get things done?
I think it's going to be same old, same old. The only thing that I'm hoping for is that because we have two Californians in leadership now, both Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy, that maybe, just maybe, we'll address the fact that California is a donor state to the tune of about anywhere from $30 to $50 billion a year, depending on what years, even now.
Which means that for every dollar that Californians send to Washington, California gets back maybe what?
At 60 cents?
Yeah, right. How many states do you know how many? I remember this. This has been the case for a long time.
Oh, long time.
But I wonder how many states are donor states. I don't know.
It's a handful.
Yeah.
And then some, of course, like Mississippi, for every dollar they send in, they get $1.87 back.
Yeah.
Plus change.
I'll bet. Yeah, right. Now, you are out in front on many, many issues, and we've talked to you about many of them over the years of this show. The latest, yesterday, you introduced legislation on e-cigarettes. What's the problem with e-cigarettes?
They're not regulated.
At all, right
now.
At all. Yeah.
And it's nicotine. And what we have seen is that the incidence of kids who ingest the e-liquid is such that even a teaspoon of it is so toxic that it can kill you. So, and these flavors they have.
E-liquid is the
liquid you put into the e-cigarette holder.
Right. Okay.
And it's very intense.
That's where the vapor comes from.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the liquid is so toxic that literally a teaspoon can kill a small child. So when you...
What is it made of?
Well, it's made of nicotine.
Oh.
It's very...
That's terrifying.
It is. No, people don't know this.
Yes. And when you have flavors like cotton candy and bubble gum and gummy bears, who are they trying to attract?
These are flavors that are available today?
These are the flavors.
Oh, God. Yeah, that says it all.
And they have at our press conference, we had a Hello Kitty bejeweled e-cigarette holder. Now, what adult is going to walk around with a Hello Kitty bejeweled cigarette holder? So there's clearly a move to try and appeal to young kids. And that teen years, the uptake is kind of surprising.
Who's making them?
Well, the holders are being made in China, and the liquid, interestingly enough, is being made here in this country, and literally no regulation whatsoever. People are making it in their bathtubs and selling it.
Are these cigarette manufacturers who are marketing these?
So the cigarette manufacturers have gotten onto this now and want to become part of the solution, right? So they see this great opportunity in e-cigarettes and are now buying into them as well.
And what is their goal? Is it to offer people obviously to get more people to use e-cigarettes, but as an alternative to smoking, or as a gateway?
Right. That's the question. And there really haven't been any longitudinal studies to kind of establish, do e-cigarettes actually help people who have been addicted to nicotine and who have been smoking for years get off it? I've gotten plenty of emails that suggest that is the case. bravo if that is in fact the case. What I'm concerned about is marketing and selling them to kids. And we know that about 1 in 5 middle school kids now are using e-cigarettes who have never smoked a cigarette before.
Whoa.
So, whether it's the new cool or it's something to keep you from smoking cigarettes is still unclear. But you are, in fact, ingesting nicotine.
Mm-hmm. And what's the answer? What would you like to see? I mean, what does your legislation do?
So this legislation will have the FDA regulate e-cigarettes like they regulate now all other tobacco products, and prevent them from being sold to children under the age of 18, and make sure that this liquid is being regulated on a level so the consumption by humans is not too toxic.
And then it will be up to to the FDA to come up with the regulations, correct?
Correct.
So then they will decide, or I guess as a question, will they decide whether you can smoke e-cigarettes like in a restaurant or in a public place?
If they're going to regulate them like they regulate tobacco, they will be treated like tobacco. So you're not going to be able to smoke them in a restaurant.
They'd be handled the same way as cigarettes or pipes or
and
cigars.
The e-liquid, we're recommending that we have child-proof containers so that a child can open it and ingest it, because the uptick at poison control centers has been dramatic, and most of these cases are for children under the age of 5.
Yeah. There's suddenly been an explosion in the use of e-cigarettes. And as you say, maybe it's because it's a new cool, but I never heard about them until maybe like a year or so ago. And then suddenly I was at somebody's home and he was smoking an e-cigarette. It was his home. I couldn't say, get rid of that thing, because it was his house, right? But I felt like saying that. But I've seen them now, people in the street, people in the subway, right? With e-cigarettes. I asked whether or not they're allowed on the White House campus. And Jay Carney didn't know. All he could say was he had never seen one on the White House campus. He didn't know whether they were allowed. And
Maybe
he
the president's smoking them.
I also asked that question, and he did not know whether the president had ever tried one. But it's a relatively new phenomenon, isn't it? Yeah.
And, in truth, I have a husband who is having a hard time kicking the habit, and I can understand how some people see it as a solution to a very serious addiction.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have studies, though, that really prove that it is, in fact, the one thing that's going to help you kick the habit. Meanwhile, we've got kids that are imbibing in it, and that's what we want to try to
Well, you
address.
mentioned a couple of the flavors. I mean, my limited knowledge of it is there are all kinds of different flavors of these things. I mean,
hundreds of flavors.
Right. So, I mean, they really are trying to lure you in, seems to me, more than, certainly in addition to, helping some people kick the habit by getting onto e-cigarettes, which might be safer than a regular cigarette. They're trying to lure people into smoking e-cigarettes.
Exactly. I mean, Sports Illustrated has an ad with a girl in a very scantily clad bikini, making the case that e-cigarettes is, where it's at. So it's the advertising is going on. The question is whether or not they should be treated like other tobacco products, and I believe they should be.
In Europe, they've already. I think in Europe they already regulate these. Do you know?
Europe tends to be ahead of us in regulatory.
Many ways, right? Yeah.
When it comes to health, yeah.
But I think they have. I think we're behind the curve here a little bit with this. I don't know.
I'm not really sure about what they're doing in Europe, to tell you the truth.
And the legislation, people want to find out more about it. What is there? Does it have a number yet? And
it does not have a number. It's being introduced today, actually.
Oh, introduced today. Okay. I knew you had the news conference yesterday. That was it. Right.
What I find so shady about the whole thing are the flavors, are the bubble gum or the tutti frutti.
I mean, this idea of gummy bears.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like you have to look at it as if this was an alcohol company and they were saying, oh, we're selling fruit punch flavored beer or Kool-Aid flavored alcohol, I think people would probably say that's not okay. That's clearly marketed to kids. And they're doing this with e-cigarettes. Like, I don't know any grown adult that wants to smoke cotton candy cigarettes.
We all remember Henry Waxman and the hearing that he had at the House Oversight Committee, where all the heads of big tobacco were there, right, with their hands raised, and said they had no idea that nicotine was addictive. No idea.
They swore under oath.
Yeah.
So whatever happened to them, right?
Right.
Did they ever go to jail? I don't think so.
No, I don't believe so. But now I wonder if you could get them all back, right, and raise their hand and say, what are you doing with these e-cigarettes, and whether we could believe them then. It's like big tobacco is back, but in a different form.
It just morphed, right?
Yeah, morphed into now e-cigarettes, another way of trying to get the same thing. What do you think? Have you tried it? Do you think it's actually, has it been good for you or someone in your family? Or do you think this is a new menace among tobacco products? 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. Congresswoman Jackie Speier from California, our guest. And I look forward to your questions, your comments when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Makes me doubt I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
13 minutes here before the top of the hour. Congresswoman Jackie Speier from California's 14th Congressional District in the studio with us. Introducing legislation today calling on the FDA to regulate e-cigarettes the same way they regulate just regular cigarettes that are out there today. And that lets us introduce you know it's going to be a big issue in front of the Congress. Before we move on, I want to ask you about a couple of other things, Congresswoman. But Candace from Palm Springs, California, a question or a comment on this issue. Hi, Candace. Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to let you know that I was a pack-a-day cigarette smoker for 32 years. I did about a month of transition where I did half cigarettes and half e-cigarettes, and for the last 8 months I have been tobacco-free, and actually I'm down to 0 nicotine in my e-cigarette juice now.
Whoa. I didn't know you could get that down to. Oh, hold on, Candace. So you said you were a smoker for how long?
32 years.
Wow. Now this, Congresswoman, I guess, is
exactly
the good use of an e-cigarette, correct?
That's correct. And and bravo to you, Candace. It's very tough to break that habit. So the fact that it works for you is great.
Never did, but I do agree with the regulation. I do think they should be regulated too.
Did you get into it? Did you decide to do it yourself, or was it a physician who suggested maybe you ought to take a switch?
No, this was like my last-ditch effort on I've wanted to quit for years, and this was like the last thing that was available to me to try.
What flavors were you using?
One that worked.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. What flavors were you using?
I tend to like the fruit-flavored ones. I like cherry, strawberries, watermelon, things like that.
Okay. All right.
Isn't that funny?
Good for you.
But I also didn't know, Congresswoman, that you could regulate the tobacco and kind of lower, the nicotine, rather,
reduce the amount, right?
Reduce the amount, which is good. So in that case, you can see where they do could have a beneficial effect. And you mentioned your husband having a hard time smoking. This may be something
this may be the
for
solution
him.
for him. Because he's used to, did you use, is it
Candace is gone. Yeah, she's gone. But there you go. So it's not banning them altogether, which is not what you've proposed at any rate. Just like they've never banned the use of cigarettes.
Correct.
I have to ask you we have talked before about your efforts in the House and particularly Senator Gillibrand's efforts in the Senate on to clamp down on this issue of sexual assault in the military. Where are we today? The Senator's bill and your bill never made it.
Yes, neither of our bills have made it. However, when I took up my bill in the House Armed Services Committee as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, we got 28 votes. And we were 4 votes short of actually winning it. So the fact that we came so close was really remarkable. And we had lots of former military members who said, enough's enough. So I think it's a matter of time. I think for Senator Gillibrand's bill, same thing. She was unsuccessful. But taking these cases out of the chain of command, when you ask the average American, should a non-judicial trained authority determine whether or not a case should go to investigation and a court-martial should take place, they would say, well, of course not. But we know that in many of these cases, the assailant is part of the chain of command or a friend of someone in the chain of command. And so there just isn't the kind of justice that, frankly, everyone deserves, and particularly those in our service.
So a major bill like this, it's rare that a major bill like this would pass the first time around at any rate, and you understand that, so you're not giving up.
I've always said that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
All right. On another issue in the news, I just have to ask you about this. The president wrestling with the problem about what to do now about Iraq. Is there any appetite in the Congress or the American people to put American troops back in Iraq?
I can't imagine that there is. I mean, the president said no boots on the ground. You know, what worries me is we started with advisors in Vietnam, and before long, we had 57,000 dead service members as a result of that war. And where are we now when we look back? Where are we typically when you look back at these wars? Now, the sectarian violence going on in that country has been going on for a very long time. It will probably continue to go along. The lines dividing these areas are arbitrary, and we probably need to have these lines redrawn. But for us to engage in the Sunni, Shia, Kurd engagement right now is, I think, would not serve us well in the near term nor in the long term.
And isn't it ironic to hear the very people who started this war in the first place now the chief critics blaming it all on President Obama?
And Dick Cheney rewriting history. I mean, please.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we'd be, we wouldn't have this problem. We'd be a lot better off, right, if they had not invaded this country in the first place, a country that had not attacked us. It's just outrageous, I think. And
but ISIL should not be taken lightly. They are serious terrorists.
A serious threat and an evil force there for sure, yeah. Congresswoman, you got your hands full, but we appreciate you taking time out for us this morning. And good luck with this e-cigarette thing. We'll be following that very, very closely. And I'll try to find out more about what's happening down at the White House.
All right.
The inside story. Congresswoman Jackie Speier. We'll be right back with today's parting shot. Thanks, Congresswoman.
My pleasure.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, score a big win for the environment yesterday and score a big win for clean air. But of course, it didn't come from the Congress. No, believe it or not, it came from the John Roberts Supreme Court. That's the crazy thing about this court. They are wrong on just about everything, affirmative action and voting rights and campaign spending, but That court's been good on the environment. This is the third time, in fact, that the conservative Roberts Court has upheld the power of the EPA to regulate greenhouse gases. The court's ruled that the EPA not only has the authority to issue regulations on carbon emissions, it says that the EPA is required by law to do so. In other words, if they were not issuing new regulations on power plants, the EPA would be breaking the law, according to the Roberts Court. Now, the EPA didn't get everything it asked for. It asked for authority to regulate 86% of greenhouse gases. The court only okayed 83%. I don't know about you, but I would call that a big victory. Hey, folks, have a great Tuesday. We'll see you back here again tomorrow.
This is the Bill Press Show.